Welcome to The Explainer. We're all about taking these huge, complex stories and boiling them down into something clear and powerful.
All right, so let's just jump right in. Picture this. It's the late 19th century, and European powers are, well, they're carving up the African continent. They're this unstoppable colonial force, and if you're one of the many kingdoms in their way, fighting back head-on, it seems totally impossible. I mean, it's like trying to stop a charging elephant with your bare hands.
But what if you didn't fight it head-on? This is a story about a king who, when faced with that exact impossible elephant, chose a totally different path. Not a path of spears and arrows, but something else. Something way more enduring.
So, our story kicks off in the Bamum Kingdom, which is in modern-day Cameroon. And this was a place where people looked for wisdom about the future from well, let's just say a very unusual source. Yeah, that source was Gamma, a wise spider. No, I'm serious. Every single movement it made was seen as a message. You know, if it came out of the left side of its hole, that meant one thing. The right side meant something else entirely. And then one night, the spider oracle delivers this absolutely stunning prophecy. A prince is going to be born, and he's going to save them from a rampaging elephant.
And believe it or not, just like Gamma predicted, a prince was born that very night. His name was Njoya. As this prophesied prince grew up, it became super clear that he wasn't your typical royal heir. He was different.
See, Njoya's real strength wasn't about fighting. It wasn't about warfare at all. It was all in his mind, his crazy curiosity, and this amazing ability to find opportunity in the middle of a total disaster. And when he became king at just 16 years old, man, he was going to need every single bit of that unique way of seeing the world for the challenge that was right around the corner.
And then, in 1902, it happened. That charging elephant from the prophecy, it finally showed up. And get this, it was the German colonial empire. Their flag for Cameroon literally had an elephant on it, and they marched right into his kingdom.
Now his nobles, they're all screaming for war. But Njoya, he knew better. He actually took their weapons away and laid out a whole new strategy. Instead of raising spears, he decided to just watch, to listen, and to learn absolutely everything he could from these powerful newcomers.
So this is how Njoya starts to build his defense. And it's a cultural defense. It all kicks off with a dream he has, a vision that told him real power came from writing. So what does he do? He basically crowdsources an alphabet. He asks his people to draw pictures of everything they can think of. From all those pictures, he creates signs. Then he refines them over and over until they capture the unique sounds of their language. And the final step? He builds schools all over the kingdom so that everyone, men, women, boys, girls, could learn this new script.
And look, he didn't just create an alphabet, he turned it into a weapon for cultural preservation. He uses it to create the first ever maps of his kingdom. He studies German farming techniques and starts his own experimental gardens to match them. He even learns architecture so he can design and build this magnificent new palace. And maybe most important of all, he wrote down the entire history of the Bamum people. He was making sure their story would never, ever be lost.
And for a while, this strategy of strengthening his culture from the inside out, it worked like a charm. The Germans even called him a genius. But then, World War I happens, and the whole political landscape just gets turned upside down. A new elephant was on the horizon.
This time, it's the French. They take control of Cameroon from the Germans, and, well, they had a very, very different opinion of King Njoya. They didn't see his brilliance as something to admire. Nope, they saw it as a threat, one that needed to be neutralized.
And this, right here, is the tragic turning point. Think about it. The Germans were kind of blinded by his cleverness, right? They saw him as an asset. But the French, they saw that same strength, that same intelligence, and they called it dangerous defiance. They were absolutely determined to break his power.
So what was their first target? You guessed it, the very foundation of everything he'd built, the Bamum writing system. They outlawed it. They shut down his schools. They demanded that everyone learn French from French books. And in just this fit of rage and despair, Njoya destroyed his own printing press, the very symbol of his life's work, just silenced by a colonial decree.
I mean, what a devastating blow. It really seemed like everything Njoya had spent his life building was about to be completely erased from history. But even in that darkest moment, Njoya remembered the wisdom of Gamma, the spider. He rallied his people one last time. But it wasn't a call to arms. It was a call for inner strength. He told them, look, they can take our land, they can take our schools,
But our dignity? That's ours, and they can only take it if we let them. The French, they just couldn't break his spirit, so in 1931, they exiled him. He died just 2 years later, so far from his home and his people. But that resilience he'd taught them, it lived on. When the government tried to destroy his palace and all his books, the people themselves rescued them. They held on to their history year after year through decades of colonial rule, right up until Cameroon finally gained its independence.
And this is the real triumph of his story, isn't it? His legacy wasn't just protected by a king. It was protected by the very people he had empowered. Because he taught them to value their own story, he made sure that it could never, ever be truly destroyed.
You know, the ancient seal of the Bamum Kingdom is a double-headed snake. It's a symbol for being able to fight 2 battles at the same time. And it perfectly captures King Njoya's entire life's work, right? Fighting for the future by creating new things, while at the exact same time fighting to preserve the past.
So King Njoya's life really leaves us with a fascinating question. I mean, think about it. He was exiled, his schools were shut down, he died far away from his throne, and yet his writing, his history, the pride of his people, all of it survived. His story seems to suggest that maybe, just maybe, the greatest victory isn't always about defeating your opponent. Sometimes it's about making sure your own story gets to be told, long after the elephants have moved on.